So everybody's been asking me to weigh in on the President Trump assassination attempt. So guys, here are my thoughts. There were failures at so many different levels really leading up to the moment it happened. And guys, I've read a lot online. Like many of my teammates, there's a lot of us that are talking about the things that occurred. I'm not even going to pull in the things that I'm seeing online because I don't know what's fact and I don't know what's fiction. I'm only going to speak from my experience as a guy who did some training in personal security details, understood them, and would have set them up in the ways we would have approached it and things that I saw from looking at this situation. Do I believe there was a total failure in the setup of providing the security for President Trump? Unequivocally. Guys, when we look at creating a defensive posture, if we're protecting someone, there are rings of protection that have to occur. There's an initial ring around that individual, which should be provided by those immediate agents, and then there are going to be rings of defensive measures that continue to go out for a significant distance. The mere fact that that individual was able to get on a rooftop within 130 yards of the president with a line of sight is mind-blowing to me. People talk about a sniper can shoot from a mile. A man-sized target is pretty difficult to hit from a mile. There are guys that unequivocally can do it. 1,200 yards, 1,000 yards, it is well within the capabilities of a highly trained sniper. This individual was at 130 yards. It is mind-blowing to me. A lot of people were like, well, how did they not see him on the roof? He was up there for 2 minutes. You're going to laugh at this because we talk about, because now the Secret Service is using this as an excuse that the roof was dangerous because it was sloped. It had a very minor slope. Military, law enforcement, police, we're all trained to be on rooftops, especially sniper teams, tactical teams, things like this. So the mere fact that I'll be honest, there are a lot of people calling for the resignation of the head of the Secret Service. She should resign merely for making that statement alone, at a minimum. But I will say this, if you look at the slope of that roof, it apexed in the middle, and it was just a moderate slope. That shooter was directly on the other side, which is interesting to me. He operated in a manner of somebody that I question, where did he get some of this training, or where did he research? I mean, he had ready-made explosives, he had his rifle, but he actually kind of stayed below the sight line. He was right up against it. So if you glanced across that rooftop, he might have possibly blended in if he stayed right below that sight threshold because of the apex. That being said, he never should have been there in the first place. Any place, when we look at defensive perimeters, there should have been guys at a minimum, whether they were securing that building, whether they were securing that rooftop, or we had other individuals on glass, meaning they had binoculars, and they were watching those specific locations. So the second anything moved, we would immediately known and directed snipers to that position. I also heard there were major communication failures, that law enforcement, Secret Service, and some of the others were not communicating well, that there were individuals that several moments before the shooting occurred saw that individual on the roof, reporting it to the police, letting them know that there was a major issue, and the communication did not make it back to the Secret Service to obviously quickly move President Trump out of that location. Failures at a lot of different levels, guys. The threat posture should have been high, and that security defensive perimeter should have gone out at a minimum, in my opinion, at least 500 to 600 yards for any rooftop that had a line of sight on the president. I don't care what the slope was. People are creative. If there's a line of sight, there should have been somebody watching both that building and that rooftop. So guys, those are my initial thoughts. I mean, if you want to get into what happened with the Secret Service, I hear people talking about, the way they holstered, the way they got around the president, the mere fact that they were slow to get him, the fact that they didn't move him in the car, even when he said stop, when he wanted to highlight things to the people. I'm not going to get down into that. It is the security team's job to move the principal and get them undercover as quickly as possible. I think there is evidence from what happened. I do think that was a breakdown in the training, and I do think they could have been more forceful and aggressive in moving the principal, in this case, President Trump, out of that situation. But I will say President Trump seized that moment to try and highlight, hey, I am okay and still alive. So A lot of things went wrong. Were there failures at the highest levels of the Secret Service and local law enforcement and whatever state agencies were set that defensive perimeter? Unequivocally. And I do think the Secret Service should be held to the highest standards, and I do think there should be an investigation of everything that occurred around that rally and the assassination attempt on President Trump. So guys, those are my thoughts on that assassination attempt and the failures of setting that perimeter and protecting the president. Number one rule in PSD, protective security details, you must protect the principal.